Hey friends, you're watching BrainStormAcres. I'm Henry. Well, I finally have the right connectors, and Irene found one of my connector crimpers. It's not exactly the right one. The job it did is kind of messy, but it works just fine. Doesn't look beautiful, but it will make the connections. So let's see where to start. Well, I think it's a good idea to kind of step back and say why I'm doing this. When I started this project, I was looking at a 12-volt lithium iron phosphate battery. It sold for about $700. The price is about the same today as it was then, but I was able to buy these cells for about $300. As this sits right now, I've saved about $400 on this battery. This is exactly what I'd get for $700. Now, I can make it better. The way I'm going to make it better is I'm going to add a battery management system to the battery. Well, that's because I'm going to be using this for some other reasons. But this product right here allows me to control how this battery balances out, so each of these cells has to be maintained at specific voltage, and it helps control the charging. The way it does that, it has some very specific sensors in it that says if the temperature is too low, don't allow the battery to be charged. Likewise, if the temperature is too high, don't allow the battery to be charged. That saves the battery life. Well, let's go ahead and get this assembled now. Since I have the right pieces together, it should go pretty quickly. The first step is to connect this particular lead to the negative terminal of the battery, which is what I'm doing right here. You may notice I'm not wearing my wedding ring right now. That's so that I don't short anything out. Now, when I was working many years ago at a weapons testing facility, there was a mechanic in the motor pool who had a scar around his ring finger. And that scar came from shorting a battery with his ring finger. And he was able to pull that ring off before any permanent major league damage was done. But he did damage his finger. He now has a permanent scar where his wedding band would go. There's no pretending to not be married for that guy. Okay, so now I need to connect the next wire. This is the one that's labeled BC1. That goes over here onto this terminal. Now I've labeled on each of these bus bars. These bus bars are, I think I'll find one here. These bus bars are a piece of metal that's designed to connect these various cells together. Now I need to make sure that this all fits tightly, but that screw is too long, so I'll swap that out if I have a smaller one. If not, I'll just put a washer on it, or maybe more than one washer. Well, that's as small as they go, so I'll put a washer or two on top. Make sure I've got the right wire. That's going to tighten down just fine. Now I didn't tighten this one down as much because I have to connect some of these wires to that terminal right there. Now the next one for the battery management system, this is BC2. BC2 connects to this terminal right here. And once again, I'm going to check to make sure that this screw tightens down enough. Nope, I need to have another washer or two. You want to make sure that the screw holds these pieces together quite tightly. There's a specification for how tight to tighten these screws down if you have a torque wrench or a torque screwdriver. Well, that's going to be tight enough there. So I guess just one washer will do the job. I'm going to tighten down the other side of the battery that connects to this other cell. Now I need to connect my next wire. Let's make sure that it's the right one. This is BC3 that goes to this spot right over here. And that's tight enough. I have one more wire to connect up. That's the red wire. That goes to the positive terminal of this battery. Well, now I have the BMS wired up for the control for the balancing. The next step is I need to connect the temperature sensor to the battery. This BMS is going to be attached right here. That's so that there's some room at the bottom in the box that's going to be mounted for other reasons. Well, I'm going to check the instructions one more time to make sure I do this in the right order. This BMS is a piece of electronics, and sometimes the power sequencing makes a big difference. All right. Now, I need to mount these terminals onto the negative terminal of the battery. That's this one right here. And if you remember, I left that a little bit loose. Oops. I left that a little bit loose so I could attach these additional terminals. Now you may be wondering why there's 3 terminals here. The answer is really pretty simple, but it might not be obvious. These wires are 8-gauge wire, and because this battery can be charged at 100 amps, you need to have multiple pieces of 8-gauge wire. Why 8-gauge wire? Well, you could use a piece of heavier gauge wire. But the problem then is that it's difficult to attach that to that printed circuit board that's inside that battery management controller. You really need to be an octopus to connect this up, because there's multiple pieces that have to go on at the same time. I think I'll do this in a slightly different order. That one's going to go there. That one's there. Now put this in the middle. So this is the one that goes to the battery management load balancer. The load balance just makes sure that all the individual cells stay at the right voltage. Now let's see if I can manage to get all four of these connectors connected at the same time. Well, that's a good start. You have to be really careful with these threads because the battery has an aluminum block that you're screwing into, and if you cross thread it or tighten it down too much, you can create a problem. And you don't want to have a problem with that kind of terminal. Well, the BMS is connected, well, at least wired so it can be connected. The next step is to plug these wires into the controller. I'm going to check the instructions one more time to make sure that I'm doing things in the exact right order. As I mentioned before, the BMS is a piece of electronics. It has some sensitive components in it. I want to make sure that I put it together and power it up in the right order. I think I'll use some tape to hold this BMS in place for the time being. I'm using electrical tape for a couple of reasons. One is I want this battery pack to be able to expand and contract as it charges and discharges. These cells will swell a little bit, maybe more than a little bit, and this tape has good compliance. That means it's just going to deal with that expansion and contraction just fine. There we go. The battery's assembled with the BMS controller. I have some other pieces I can put on here. I already have the Bluetooth interface board connected to the BMS controller. That will light up when I plug these cables in, if it's done right. So we'll see. I'm ready to go charge this battery. The way it's going to work is I connect these cables to the battery charger and another cable onto this terminal right here. I'm going to take this outside just in case. Although I think it's going to work just fine, I want to be very, very cautious and make sure I don't burn my house down. Well, thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and ring the bell for notifications because we're going to be doing a lot more stuff. I'm really glad that this is done here. I'm really happy that Irene was able to find my crimping tool. As I said, it wasn't the ideal one. The right kind of crimping tool uses hydraulic pressure to compress these connectors in a prettier fashion so that they have a little bit better connections. But this will work. I just have to make sure that I don't short any of these cables out together. That's not a problem. I'll be putting this into a box. I have some other things that Irene doesn't know I'm going to do, but I'm hoping to get that done tomorrow when I think the parts are going to come in. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and ring the bell for notifications because we have a lot more stuff going on, including showing you what I'm going to do with this battery next. We'll talk with you later. Bye. And don't forget to brainstorm. We do.